Hello, good evening and welcome to Tier 2 of our Burger and Brewfest 2020 rankings. We are almost at the end. We are into the top 10. These 5 burgers are really, really good, with only a minor flaw that really kept them out of the top, or possibly something that they just did better than the ones below that elevated them just a little bit more than the others. There are some quality burgers here, and you should really go out and try all of them. Also some big surprises, so let's dive right in and start with one of those surprises, and that is Piatto Midtown. You may remember that Piatto Downtown was in the bottom tier, and the reason for that mainly was that they just repeated last year's burger. Somehow Midtown came up with an entirely new concept of their own. They continued to use the pizza dough bun, but that is so good that I don't want to dock them anything for that. I wouldn't have docked Downtown for repeating the bun either. It's a pizza place. Of course you're going to use what? Brung you. You dance with who brung you, right? But the best thing on this bun was easily that sauce. And yeah, I know you just read the description, but I'm going to read this out because you really need to get an idea of the mouthful of what's on this. Balsamic glazed portobellos in a Five Brothers Avalon cheddar and Kitty Vitty cappuccino stout cheese sauce. I'm getting hungry just saying it, and it was so good. Cheese and mushrooms obviously is a classic combination. I would not have put balsamic glaze in with a cheese sauce, but it really worked. It was just this slightly sweet, slightly vinegary, smooth, velvety, warming, delicious goop on top of your burger, and it was great. To the surprise of no one, crispy pancetta is fabulous. Frying the banana peppers, as we've seen throughout this contest, appears to be the key to taking off that nasty, strong vinegar taste and just leaving you with a slightly fruity kick. This was a really good burger. I keep saying that. The patty was well cooked. The Piatto in the past has been guilty of overcooking their burgers and leaving you with a pretty dry one. This one, nicely pink in the middle. I will say 2 points against it. The Parmesan aioli was basically not there, and it's really hard to overwhelm Parmesan, so that tells you either it wasn't properly applied or you might as well not have had it. This one is also really messy. A lot of issues with the structural integrity on this, which is what's keeping it out of the top tier. Otherwise, quality effort. Next up is Green Door. We've been there a couple of times now and liked it both times. The problem that we had in grading this burger is they went with a very clever, funny definition, or description rather, and they went with, a current affairs joke. But we had no idea what was supposed to be on the burger. So I don't know if anything was missing, if it was supposed to taste the way it did. Given what we ended up thinking of this, it kind of fits the theme. So you had a giant fry on top of the burger. I have no idea why. Fries go with burgers. Maybe this was a promise a lot, deliver a little type of thing, like the person they're making fun of. Don't know. But it was a big, thick plank of potato that was somehow soft in the middle. So you nailed that. The patty, though, was just utter perfection. It was really thick, but it was still moist and juicy, and it was so well charred, it put me in mind of the flavor you get on a Whopper, as is indicated in the description. But yet that sauce that was on the burger was almost like a Big Mac style secret sauce. So it was kind of like a cross between a Whopper and a Big Mac, but elevated way the frig up there in quality. The onion rings, normally we don't judge the sides, but because they were presented as part of the package as the Trump Tower, were completely under-seasoned. And although you had an interesting batter on there that was almost like a cake donut with an onion in the middle, which didn't absorb as much grease as you would expect from a thickly battered onion ring, the seasoning that was supposed to be on there was basically not present, and it really just left you with a cakey onion. Not the best. However, the burger itself just tasted really, really good. There was some sort of pickled something on there. Perhaps it was just normal pickles. It might have been something slightly different. Onions were on there. But again, we don't know what was on it. We don't know what was supposed to be on it. All we know it tasted good. And I still don't know. They made a big deal of no peach being in it. Just use peach barbecue sauce. It would have been so easy. The Garden Grill. This is probably one of the biggest surprises for us. This is a restaurant in the fairly new Hilton Garden Inn downtown, and they gave us one of the best burgers we had. Definitely the best lamb burger. They really put Tear to shame on how well they cooked it. Charred on the outside, still pink on the inside, like, lamb is supposed to be, not raw. But it was also really well seasoned. I'm not a huge fan of Mediterranean cooking. I can do without olives. Stuff like tzatziki and hummus doesn't really do it for me, and I actively dislike the saltiness of feta. But on this burger, the tzatziki and feta combination really worked well with the rest of the ingredients. It's almost like they left salt out of the rest so that the feta just seasoned the rest of it perfectly. You had a really strong, coherent theme here. This felt like you were eating at a Mediterranean restaurant. The veggies worked. They gave the crunch that the burger needed. I mean, they said arugula. That was definitely romaine. But I think romaine was actually a better choice because arugula doesn't give you that crunch that romaine does. The tomatoes were good. The crispy onions were raw, so I guess technically they're crispy, but when you say crispy onions, I expect fried and probably battered. We didn't get that. However, really good Mediterranean flavor, tasty burger, well charred. Could have done with some mint. I love mint and lamb. I don't know if that's a European thing, like Western European instead of the Eastern European Mediterranean area. Burger was still good. Go for it. Next up, one of our favorites every year and outside of the burger battle is Bernard Stanley Gastropub. They have a habit of delivering what I can only call an unwieldy but delicious mess. They didn't do that this year, but only because it wasn't unwieldy. We were able to actually get this one in our mouths without cutting it, and if you've seen some of the burgers that Bernard Stanley has offered in the past, that's not always a given. The apple and onion jam was really good on this. It almost sounds like something you'd put on your toast instead of on a burger. It was sweet, but it did have a little bit of savory from the onion. It worked well with the smoked cheddar, and it worked well with the patty. When you have all those toppings on a burger and so many strong flavors, it's very easy for the patty just to act almost like a base, but it asserted itself in every bite. You definitely knew what you were eating, which is not an easy thing to do. And I think the addition of the pork and the glazing actually really helped there. The chipotle aioli really did a good job teaming up with that barbecue glaze to emphasize both of those flavors. Interestingly enough, wrapping the onion rings in bacon did nothing to elevate either of those two ingredients. You still have onion and bacon and they still taste good, but the only benefit I could see was the aesthetics. You could have brushed that with something like a honey sriracha glaze, or any sort of glaze, really. You could have brushed it with the apple and onion jam, and it would have done more, but as it was almost like they just put them together to look good. The other problem here was that having two cheeses on this made the burger kind of heavy, and with nothing to cut it, that greasy feel, you had a really heavy burger that filled you. And sure, that's a good thing in most cases, but it could be a little difficult to get through the last few bites, especially if you're not a seasoned burger aficionado like I am. Some greenery on there might have helped. Cutting one of the cheeses would have been my preferred approach, probably the mozzarella, given the general lower taste profile. Or you could have had some sort of hot sauce, maybe a chutney of some lower pepper, like a poblano or something, that still gives a little bit of a kick, but doesn't overwhelm you with spice. Would have really helped that. Last one for this tier, and I've been back and forth on this one, and the first one in the top tier is Blue on Water. When it comes to names, if there were a competition for the best name, they'd probably win. But there isn't. This is all about taste and presentation, and don't get me wrong, this burger was delicious. It's a great idea. They executed the theme really well. Everything on this burger belonged on an Indian-inspired burger. I love patties with mushrooms in them because that mushroom It adds earthiness, but it also seems to give like a depth and a strength to the flavor. Fullness is probably the word I'm looking for, which you don't get just from meat blends. So I was very excited for that. I love onion bhaji. It's one of my favorite side dishes at any style of restaurant. I will always get it when I go and eat an Indian restaurant. And it worked really well here. It gave you the impression of onions on a burger, but worked with the theme. My issue with this burger, and what ultimately kept it out of the top 5, was that the Vindaloo ketchup and the herb and chili mayonnaise were both very scantily applied. So you didn't really get a feeling for how either of them was affecting the taste. The Vindaloo ketchup could have really made a difference. And the herb and chili mayo, I could take or leave. It might have been better as a sort of a writer-inspired thing, maybe with a yogurt and cucumber and maybe something like that on there. But that ultimately is just a question of putting a little bit more on in the kitchen. It's a really tasty burger, maybe a tiny bit salty for some people, but in terms of theme and presentation and taste, this delivered on all the fronts, and it's only a couple of pretty minor things that kept this out of the top 5. So, next time we meet, we will be looking at that top 5, or maybe we won't. I got a couple of ideas just to keep you guys waiting for the top 5. You know what they are, but you don't know the order they're in. We're going to go with the awards show next, where we give out awards like Kids' Choice, Biggest Surprise, Best Topping. And then we will be back on Tuesday with the rankings of the top 5. You guys take care, stay safe, stay home, wash your hands, and we will see you soon.